For thousands of generations, humanity shared the planet with a living nightmare. 30 millennia ago, a rustle in the midnight shadows signaled a brutal, imminent death sentence. Our ancestors were slow, weak, and tracked by apex killers capable of locking onto their scent from miles out. These predators deployed ruthless, coordinated pack tactics, equipped with crushing jaw pressure, infinite stamina, and night vision that turned the darkness into their personal hunting ground. Yet against every evolutionary law, this exact apex killer transformed into humanity's most loyal ally. We didn't choose the horse, the cow, or our closest genetic relatives. We chose the beast. Fast forward to the present day, nearly 1 billion domestic canines occupy the globe. They occupy our beds, secure our properties, sniff out explosives, manage livestock, pull survivors from freezing snowbanks, and mock their own lineage by wearing party hats next to birthday cakes. But this multi-million-dollar alliance was never a strategic master plan. No prehistoric council ever gathered around a fire to design a domesticated, stick-fetching companion. The domestic dog is the result of a massive historical fluke. Even more bizarre, the wolves likely initiated this psychological shift entirely on their own, long before humans decoded what was happening. To dissect this transition, we must visualize the absolute brutality of the last glacial maximum. Between 20 and 40,000 years ago, human survival relied entirely on nomadic foraging. Fragmented tribes of barely 50 individuals drifted across frozen wastelands in a perpetual state of starvation. Survival was a calculated gamble. The majority of the hunts ended empty-handed. Sub-zero winters decimated populations, and a simple fractured bone was a definitive death warrant. Yet, right at the perimeter of our survival camps, just beyond the reach of the firelight, the eyes of the pack watched. This is where the biological loop closes. Early humans were incredibly wasteful scavengers. Despite constant famine, nomadic sites were littered with discarded marrow bones, fat trimmings, hides, and rotting carrion. To a wild canine, a roaming human tribe was simply a mobile, self-replicating oasis of zero-risk calories. Initially, the pack kept its distance. Over time, the boldest individuals tested the boundaries. The overtly hostile wolves were immediately terminated with spears. The hyper-fearful ones fled into the dark, starving on the fringes. But a distinct genetic anomaly emerged within specific subsets, mutated individuals possessing reduced adrenaline, low aggression, and heightened curiosity. Cutting-edge DNA mapping proves these anomalies were biologically predisposed to tolerate human proximity. Across millennia, this specific behavioral lineage outlived and outbred their hyper-aggressive counterparts. By trading the lethal hazards of hunting megafauna for the safety of human garbage piles, they hacked the survival loop. Natural selection was no longer testing physical dominance, it was filtering for psychological compliance. High sociability yielded maximum caloric reward. The placid variants integrated into the camp perimeter. The hostile variants were systematically wiped out. Soon, this psychological rewiring triggered a radical, downstream morphological mutation. This evolutionary bypass might sound like science fiction, but modern researchers documented the exact mechanism in a controlled environment. Deep in the frozen expanse of Siberia in 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev launched a legendary biological experiment using wild foxes. To isolate the exact blueprint of domestication, Belyaev implemented a single rule: crossbreed only the individuals that showed zero fear of human contact. There was zero behavioral conditioning and zero active training. The selection process was based purely on innate docility. Within mere decades, the wild genetic defenses of these animals completely collapsed. They began seeking out human touch, whining for validation, and wagging their tails on command. Then came the real scientific shockwave. Their physical anatomy mutated in lockstep with their behavior. Their rigid, wild skeletal structures softened, yielding droopy ears, shortened skulls, piebald white fur patches, and tightly curled tails. This confirmed a bizarre biological law. Selecting for low adrenaline fundamentally alters an animal's physical blueprint. Across entirely unrelated species, tamer variants consistently develop reduced jaw symmetry, neotenic facial features, and mottled coats as a biological default. Consequently, the initial proto-dogs shed their terrifying predator aesthetic long before humans ever began active artificial selection. Picture the cognitive shock of a Paleolithic hunter observing a subpopulation of camp-following wolves that were noticeably downsized, calm, and visually unthreatening. They were no longer wild threats, but they hadn't yet crossed the threshold into pets. Furthermore, this evolutionary symbiosis wasn't isolated to a single geographic locus. Independent canine populations were self-domesticating around human fires across multiple continents simultaneously. For millennia, this cross-species contract developed in absolute silence, with our ancestors completely unaware they were piloting a genetic revolution right next to their hearths. The return on investment for humanity became instantly undeniable. These creatures captured acoustic frequencies completely undetectable to human ears, registered predators from vast distances, and traced migration paths with zero visual cues. A semi-domesticated pack at the camp perimeter functioned as an organic, early warning security matrix. They intercepted approaching megafauna, signaled hostile rival tribes, and guided human hunting parties directly to target prey. The moment survival became a mutual economic transaction, the pace of coevolution exploded. This solidifies the canine as the absolute first domesticated asset in human history, predating livestock, agriculture, and fixed settlements by thousands of years. When humanity finally shifted to a farming economy, the canine genome mutated once again to match our dietary revolution. As our fields filled with grain crops, dogs rapidly developed specific duplicate genes to process complex carbohydrates, a metabolic feat true wolves still cannot perform. Consider the historical scale. This partnership was fully operational prior to the invention of written text, before the configuration of cities, before the smelting of metal, and millennia before the first stone of the pyramids was placed. Across centuries of intense proximity, the biochemical pathways of both species fused on an emotional level. Mutual eye contact between a human and a dog triggers an immediate, massive spike of oxytocin in both brains, hijacking the exact neurochemical mechanism that bonds a mother to her newborn infant. A true wolf will never establish this biochemical link with a human. A dog does it instinctively. That look of unconditional adoration from a modern family pet is not an accidental behavioral quirk. It is a highly refined evolutionary tool engineered to manipulate human psychology. They physically adapted specialized facial musculature solely to mirror expressions that humans are hardwired to defend. The classic puppy dog expression proliferated through natural selection simply because humans routinely fed and protected the canines capable of manipulating their empathy. Leading anthropological data suggests that canine-assisted hunting was so wildly efficient, it allowed tribes with dogs to systematically outcompete and outlive human lineages that lack them. We didn't conquer the planet alone. Canines clear-cut the path for human expansion. But this genetic trade-off extracted a severe toll, effectively stripping the canine of its primal self-reliance. Driven by cosmetic human desires, modern corporate breeding has engineered biological catastrophes. Pugs live in a state of chronic respiratory failure. Dachshund spines buckle under their own weight, and bulldogs are physically incapable of reproducing without surgical intervention. The dark reality of weaponized artificial selection. Yet beneath the modified exterior, the ancient wolf blueprint remains completely intact. When your dog paces in uniform circles before resting, it is executing an ancient behavioral loop designed to flatten wild brush for predator defense. The midnight howl, the frantic burying of toys, and the tracking twitches during deep sleep are unedited Paleolithic scripts leaking into the modern world. Embedded within the DNA of a 3-pound Chihuahua or a working husky resides the unyielding ghost of an Ice Age apex predator. This explains why our relationship with canines deviates from every other animal dynamic on Earth. Cats merely exploit our infrastructure. Livestock simply tolerate our presence. Horses comply under mechanical force, but dogs integrated into our actual identity. They guarded our sleep while rival monsters circled our encampments. They braved sub-zero migrations, secured our defenseless settlements, and accompanied human armies into war zones, ocean crossings, and virgin territories. Somewhere across that bloody historical timeline, this survival pact evolved into something far more profound than utility. Excavations in Germany uncovered a distinct 14,000-year-old burial site containing a prehistoric man, a woman, and a canine meticulously laid to rest as an unbroken family unit. Forensic analysis revealed the animal survived a lethal childhood pathology for several months prior to death, proving these nomadic hunters actively used limited resources to nurse a non-working asset back to health. Let that metric settle in for a moment. Nomadic humans, operating on the absolute brink of starvation during a global ice age, willingly sacrificed vital calories, time, and safety to protect an ailing pup. They actively chose a liability over self-preservation. This transcends primitive utility. It is the birth of cross-species empathy, mutual attachment, pure devotion. For 30,000 years, our fates and genetic paths have been completely intertwined. An empire built entirely because a few desperate scavengers conquered their fear of a flickering fire. No engineered strategy, no human invention. Just discarded bones in the dirt, shadows stepping tentatively into the light, and evolution turning an ancient biological rivalry into the most successful cross-species alliance the world has ever seen. And tonight, as that animal curls up to sleep within the safety of your home, it remains entirely oblivious to the fact that its path to your side required a 30,000-year evolutionary war.